A blue hedgehog has bought a red bird. The Activision deal has been blocked, question mark. Star Wars Survivor is getting crazy positive reviews, but also simultaneously being review bombed. And PS5 are selling fewer $70 games, but making more money.
Yeah, like if you're going to buy a mobile studio, why wouldn't you just buy one for a hell of a lot cheaper?
So we're both Brits, Vin. Most of our audience are Americans, so
This is true. Yeah.
I have to apologise that we have put a roadblock in the Activision Microsoft merger deal.
Yes.
What do you fancy?
Let's do the first one.
Star Wars Survivor.
Yeah, so like first and foremost, like PC is just like way more difficult to develop for because you're not. Thing which I always come back around to, like people complain about like the $70 price point, but if you take inflation into account, games really should be about 100 right now. So the fact that the 70 is kind of a godsend. So we should be like kind of thankful. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Polygon Forest. I am the indie developer as well as this guy over here, but I'm Vin Hill, and as always joined by Christopher Jarvis.
Hello.
Still a terrible intro. We will find one day, I promise. But today is not that day. Please help us find one. If you've got a good one, please suggest. Give us a script in the comments. That would actually help us out a lot.
Yeah.
I'm no longer an Ubisoft concept artist. Chris is no longer an aspiring developer. What the hell? Yeah. How do we podcast 101? Please?
We don't even have proper official titles, really. We just have titles we just made ourselves.
Yeah, this is true. This is very true.
So.
Oh well. Who will?
Good problems to have.
Yeah, indeed. How's it going, man?
It's going good. Yeah, not too bad. It still feels like we need to get used to this. Then with you being in the UK now.
Yeah, it's kind of messed me up because I haven't got a proper setup and stuff. That's why any sort of viewers that are returning. They'll probably see that we haven't been uploading every single week because it's just I don't have a proper setup. I'm between Airbnbs with my wife at the moment. I'm between visas, moving to the US, and so everything is I've got the only real thing that I've got is a mic and my laptop, and that's it. So it's been a bit of a pain to get into that habit, that old habit of just okay, it's Sunday at 12. It's nope, now we have to do it at 5 because different time zones and stuff like that. But we'll get there eventually.
Yeah,
eventually we will get there.
We'll get there. But it seems like a lot of stuff's been happening. We've got a lot to talk about this week.
Yeah.
On
this week's episode of Acquisition News.
On Acquisition News, a blue hedgehog has bought a red bird.
Indeed.
The Activision deal has been blocked, question mark. Star Wars Survivor is getting crazy positive reviews, but also simultaneously being review bombed. Well, it's not even review bombed, quite rightly terrible reviews because its port on this PC is just diabolical. And PS5 are selling fewer $70 games but making more money.
Ooh.
That's what we're going to talk about.
Do you want to get the big one out of the way first?
Well, which one's the big one? The $1 billion deal or the billions of dollars of blocked deal?
All right, yeah, let's just get the acquisition news out of the way because
Okay.
There'll be some people say I'm really sick of hearing about this. So let's just, hopefully, you can skip ahead and listen to the normal gamey stuff if you want. But
No, don't.
Yeah,
listen to it all.
Yeah, you should listen to it all. just go make a coffee and put it on mute. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, let's talk about the acquisition news. So the first one obviously is the SEGA and the SEGA one. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so SEGA has brought out Rovio for $1 billion. So it was
there was a question mark in there somewhere, right?
Well, for the longest time it was sort of assumed, or there was whispers of it, but it seems to have been made official now. So the acquisition sounds like it's going ahead, pending anything there. They're paying 9.25 million euros per share, and the shares were set at 7.78 euros. So they're paying a lot of money, more than what it was kind of valued at, I think is the headline, to actually buy it. So they see a lot of value in it. So what does this mean basically? What's this going to mean? So SEGA are going to own Rovio. Rovio are famous for Angry Birds. but Angry Birds haven't put out anything substantial over the last few years. They've done a few bits and bobs here and there, but they're one of the most popular games of all time ever. I think there was 5 years running where Angry Birds was like the top selling game.
Yeah, they've got plenty of money.
Oh yeah,
had plenty of money, I should say. Because like the final deal says, Japanese gaming giant Sega has confirmed that it's buying Finland's Rovio at an all-cash deal worth $775 million.
Okay.
706 million euro, if you want to be pedantic about it.
Right.
But yeah, like I'm not. Yeah, like the thing is, Rovio knew how to make good games and stuff. Like there's nothing. It just I think everyone was a bit. There's some raised eyebrows about why is Sega buying Rovio? Like, what's going to come out of that? Like, are they hoping that they're going to start making Sega games for mobile, and they're just like they're buying just a wholesale company that knows how to do that? They've got a track record of making mobile games, like high quality mobile games. Is that the goal here, or is Sega actually looking at Angry Birds as an IP? And instead of buying just because the problem is with Rovio, right? Like Rovio is Angry Birds for the most part, and Angry Birds is Rovio. Like there's kind of
they're one and the same.
Yeah. Like if you're gonna buy a mobile studio, why wouldn't you just buy one for a hell of a lot cheaper that can still produce solid mobile games? You know, like you could find something for many less millions.
Yeah.
Than that. So
that would suggest that the other is they've found value in the IP then, and that they're gonna get money off of the next Angry Bird game that comes out.
Yeah, it's hard, man, because like if this happened 10 years ago, then it'd be like, man, that's impressive. That's kind of cool. You know, like what's Sega gonna do with Angry Birds? But like Angry Birds it's kind of a dead horse at this point. You know, like it still makes money. Don't get me wrong. Like the IP obviously still has some stopping power. They've put out 2 movies. You know, like there's constant mobile games coming out. Like they do brand deals constantly.
Yeah,
it's obviously still generating income.
Yeah,
but it's just not. I don't think it's got the same power as it once had. So it's kind of interesting to see that more than anything. It's just like this idea of, you know, like Sega buying this. Like, is it a misjudgment, or do they see something else that's in the pipe that they're just like, yeah, we want a piece of that pie? You know, that's what makes me curious.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. It's I don't know what's going to happen. It could be inject a lot of energy and enthusiasm into the brand. You know, we could get some cool stuff. It could have shelved or killed things that we've not seen in the pipeline yet. If they were working on like an Angry Birds 3 or something.
Sure.
So that could be interesting, or could be taken over. There's so many possibilities. They could maybe want to add, you know, the Sonic characters into the mix, maybe, and get like a mashup going. I don't know. I mean, Sega have released Sonic games on mobile successfully.
Oh, without doubt.
Over the last few years, you know, different versions of different Sonic games have pop up now on mobile. But maybe not. Maybe this has not got the same marketing push as they want it to have, or the same popularity. Who knows? Yeah. We'll have to figure out.
Yeah, it's tough. Like to me, like it seems like a strange deal to me. Like, and I mean that with all due respect. It's just kind of like if you know, if Angry Birds is on the way down, like as an IP, like there's only so much you can really do with it. It's about birds like getting thrown at pigs. You know what I mean? If Sega are going to buy that, they wanted to do something different with it. Like that's the main thing which I'm looking at, and it's kind of like I don't know how much Sega could do. Like because Sega are predominantly a console company as well.
Yeah.
So it just seems.
Maybe that's it.
Like,
they're buying the expertise and the experience of, you know, mobile people.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's probably a combination of a few things.
Yeah.
Right. Just it seems like just a very unfitting acquisition to me. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe like people that are sort of more aware of the situation, or Sega sort of dipping into the mobile market a little bit more. Yeah. I'm not too sure.
It's possible it could be purely and utterly financial. Like, you know, recession, everything's low, everything's on sale at the moment, and everything's going to grow over the next few years. We've got the cash to make an investment. This is a good investment deal. It could be purely financial, and then it's like some people figure out what we can do later, but it could be that.
Yeah, like it could be one of those deals where they're like Sega have had their eye on Rovio for a really long time because they've got a very specific project in mind, right? And it's just like, no, we need to wait for the shares to come down before we can buy them, because like $5 billion was too much. and they've just been counting and like seeing the recession hit and seeing it come down, 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 kind of like, okay, sweet, now it's time to strike, sort of thing. Now we can do that project that we've had in the back of our mind all this time.
Yeah.
You know, if it's something like that, then that's like, okay, cool. Like, it really, like, it just seems like we've only got half the information on this one.
Yeah, all we know is that it's being bought, and we have no idea why.
Yeah, because, like, normally when an acquisition happens, like the one that we're going to be talking about in a minute, with, like, Microsoft and Activision and things like that, right?
We know
Blizzard,
why.
It makes sense. Like, we see where the potential is, we see where it goes, the game's going to Game Pass, blah, 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 you know, all this sort of stuff. Like, we see it. We see like the plan and the goal, and we see that it's going to work out. And it's the same thing for when PlayStation bought out Bungie. It's like, yeah, they need an FPS in their catalog. They bought Bungie for Destiny. We get it. Like, it makes sense. Yeah. But this one, it's just like, Sega bought Rovio? Like, okay. Well,
yeah.
It's a bit weird.
It's way more left field, isn't it? A bit more unsure.
Very, very strange.
But it's good, though, because that means that we can speculate. And
gives us something to talk about. Absolutely.
Gives us something to talk about, and you can put your comments in what you think. Some people are saying, crossovers they might be able to see. Again,
but they could have done that without the deal, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's what I keep going on about. It's like, why wouldn't there be a Rovio / Sonic game? You know,
and Rovio,
like, that's fine.
Rovio, the king of the crossover, like the amount of IPs they've brought into Angry Birds, successfully and done well,
without doubt,
is admirable. So. Maybe that could be part of it. Like, they want to slice that pie.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, they said in the sort of closing statement for the deal as well. SEGA, Sammy Holdings said in a press release, "I am confident that through the combination of both companies' brands, characters, fan base, as well as the corporate culture and functionality, there will be significant synergies created going forward." So it is clearly something to do with the brand, but it's tough, man. Like, it's a really funny one.
I mean, if you think about it from the Sonic perspective, because I've just been thinking about it from Rovio, Sonic games have been slated. The last few Sonic games have been slated.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like we need to mix something up into this. Sonic's too valuable for us to keep fumbling, and they've been fumbling the last few releases by the sounds of it.
Yeah, but Sega have got so many other IPs like Yakuza and things like that, right? Like, they do a lot of cool other stuff, which they could do on mobile, I guess. So like, if it was anyone else other than Rovio for like a mobile company, it would make sense. Like, the fact that Rovio don't really make 3D games, they only really make 2D games. So it's not like there's going to be like a 2D Yakuza game coming out or something. Or maybe there will. I don't know. Like, what would that look like? God knows. Like, it's really
if you gave
strange.
Sonic to the Rovio team and said make a Sonic game, 2D Sonic game, that could be cool.
Could be, or it could just be like a really gimmicky thing. I mean, Rovio are like famous for being that company that made like 50 games before they got to Angry Birds, and they were on the verge of bankruptcy before they struck gold. Like, are they on the other side of that doing that same thing again and just trying over and over and over again and failing over and over and over again? Like, with all due respect, obviously that's what it takes to get to a great game sometimes. But it's kind of like, are Sega willing to roll that dice? But that was a long time ago, right? Like, I mean, God, Angry Birds came out in what, like 2007 or something? Like, it's a good old game now. So yeah, who knows? They've clearly changed their ways as well. Like, they're very smart with money. They capitalized on that IP. So yeah, funny one. Like, we'll have to wait and see though. Yeah,
it'd be weird. But yeah, so that'd be interesting to see what comes out of it. That'd be something to talk about on the podcast. Indeed. So you should probably subscribe and should like as well. Maybe even comment. Yeah. Yep. So we're both Brits, Vin. Most of our audience are Americans. So this is true. Yeah. I have to apologise that we have put a roadblock in the Activision Microsoft merger deal. Yes. Especially because of the fact that me and Chris are both on the CMA board, and we were the people that sort of pushed to get this blocked. Like, we were the ones. We were just like, this is very silly. It's way too much money. Yeah, too much money coming into the UK market. Yeah, like we can't allow this much cash flow to come into the UK. That'd be very silly. Yeah, we don't want that. So we said no. Everything. Considering Brexit, we want to stand up on our own feet. We want to do things our own way. Exactly. There we go. I can't think of any. I literally can't think of why this was blocked. I have no idea why it was blocked. The stupidest reason in the world. Yeah. So, like, for those of you that don't know, if you've been living under a rock, then congratulations. That must be a very comfortable rock. But, So the
the UK antitrust regulator, the Competitions and Market Authority, also known as the CMA, have announced that they will block the Microsoft acquisition deal, which is currently sat at 69 billion with a capital B US dollars. And the UK were just like, yeah, no, we don't like that. So we're not doing that. And it's not something that Microsoft can ignore, because the UK market is the second biggest market for Xbox as a sort of platform. Many folks in the UK play on Xboxes. They choose to play on Xbox over PlayStation. I think until quite into the middle of the last generation, I believe. I think the market share was actually Xbox over here. So that's how big of a deal it is to UK gamers. So the fact that this was blocked is kind of silly and very, very strange, because the majority of the gamers over here, for the most part, are Xbox players. So this would have benefited them very, very greatly. And there's a lot of first-party studios that are Microsoft studios in the UK as well, such as Playground Games, the people who make Forza Horizon are over here. We've got Rare, that make Skull and Bones, not Skull and Bones, sorry, Sea of Thieves. Yes. Very, very similar games, to be fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, so these are Xbox exclusive games, Xbox exclusive studios that were basically just snuffed and said, yeah, we don't really care about you because we're worried about the cloud gaming end of this, which I have to be very, very clear about this. There's a lot of people that have had a lot of misconceptions about this. The CMA have not blocked this because they're worried about monopolies. No. They're not worried about the games. They're not worried about Call of Duty. They're not worried about any of that. All of that is fine. The thing that they're worried about is very specifically cloud gaming and the emergence of that market, which is very bizarre for that to be picked up. But
they think it's going to be big, and therefore the merger could kill it.
Yeah. Even though we've had multiple companies over the past sort of 5 years fail and die because the market just is not as strong as people thought it was going to be yet.
Yeah. Stadia crashed and burned.
Stadia is the big one.
Yeah.
And they were actually called out in the sort of descent of all of this, right?
Yeah.
The CMA actually referenced Stadia and said, well, look at Stadia. They died out because of Microsoft's dominance in the market. It's that's not really what happened. It's just Google kind of mishandled that whole thing.
Yeah.
They always do. Google always give every single project that they do a year, and if it hasn't hit major success, they kill it. This is tried and true thing, but that was sort of called out as a point of concern for Microsoft having a monopoly over in the cloud market, which I don't know. This is a very strange one. But how do you feel about this one, Mark?
Well, I can see both sides. I think it's silly. I think it's I think they're being overly cautious. But I can understand their concern. They don't want to kill cloud gaming, and these are some of the biggest games that are going to be on these cloud gaming services. So therefore there's some weight to it. But the Stadia thing was from mismanagement, and that's no secret. Everyone knows that Stadia thing wasn't from anything other than just mismanagement, and they weren't offering a product that people wanted. Therefore, it didn't do very well, and it died. This merger, I can't see that being an issue for cloud gaming specifically. It's too broad to come down to just a few games. But what I think is going to happen is that maybe Activision could be okay, well, we'll make sure that on cloud gaming we'll make some allowances or something or other. They'll have to appease the CMA to get it through on appeal. I think they'll have to make some allowances or make intentions clear about use of cloud gaming with the IP and things like that, possibly. Because it was such a small part of the deal that wasn't really being focused on. So hopefully it's just crossing the I's and dotting the T's, which is why they've put this roadblock in. Yeah,
I guess the thing about the cloud gaming thing is that if the CMA are so worried about Xbox's dominance, which is already silly in and of itself, because Xbox are they have a third of the market share than what PlayStation have got. And PlayStation are dominating on IPs right now. They dominate on console sales, on the IP sales. everything first party. PlayStation does bigger and better sort of thing,
Yeah.
but they're worried about them getting, like
collapsing the market. Yeah,
it's preposterous in that respect.
yeah.
Like it's
Microsoft
very,
wouldn't just
very
be
silly.
like, we're in charge of everything now, ha ha ha,
Yeah.
and it was all because of cloud gaming.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's
Call of
and there's
Duty.
that.
It's like, no, that's not going
And
to happen.
that and that sort of leans towards they've kind of shot themselves in the foot, because what they're saying is that without Activision and without Blizzard under their belt, they're still succeeding in cloud gaming by themselves.
Yeah.
So what is that going to stop at this point? You know, like
Yeah.
they're just going to be.
That's going to be the
like,
argument.
it's already
isn't it?
growing.
Yeah,
it's already being more successful.
They'll present the
without
figures. They'll be
them.
like, PlayStation are already dominating in this. It will get further to 50%, but we still aren't in charge of that side of things. So if that's your argument, PlayStation are still winning. So what's the problem?
Yeah, and it's that which annoys me more than anything, because like in the other two consoles, like the big ones is Nintendo and PlayStation. So Nintendo have market share in console sales for the Switch, like over the other two, without like hands down.
Yeah,
without
but the
doubt.
price point's a bit different, but still, yeah.
Yeah, very different. So then, if Xbox are behind on hardware sales, like that's okay. Like it's okay if Nintendo run away with the ball on that one. That's fine for the CMA. If PlayStation come out and have twice as many games, twice as much success, and start selling their games for $70 a piece, right? Or like in the UK, it's the increased price. I don't actually know what it is in the UK at the moment for a full price game. That's okay. But if Xbox, how dare they want to get a little bit of a head on any of any of those sort of markets? So now that Xbox has got a little bit of leniency, a little bit of a head on cloud gaming, now that they've found their foothold in the industry and what they can do with it, that's suddenly a bad thing. It's very strange to me that, like, if it was any other company, because I don't know if it's because Jim Ryan happens to be a British person, and he's he came in and gave this huge speech to like sort of say, well, cloud gaming's going to destroy PlayStation, which is nonsense, obviously.
Yeah.
Because like Nintendo went there saying the same thing. Nintendo don't mind. Nintendo, because all this really comes down to is who owns the exclusive rights to these IPs. And it's okay because PlayStation has a huge catalog of first party IPs that aren't on the other consoles, as does Nintendo, but Xbox don't. But the fact that they're trying to buy that, and that's suddenly a bad thing for the CMA. That's what I have my problem with. It's kind of like if it was any other company, I would understand this argument, absolutely. If it was PlayStation doing this, and they were just trying to get even more IP, like, I understand that, because it's kind of like, yeah, Xbox sort of don't have enough IP as it is.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, that would just be, stop it, he's already dead meme, like, put underneath here, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. But for Xbox, it's like, if anyone should be allowed to buy out a publisher, it probably should be Xbox, because they need the IP.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the part that's strange to me.
Yeah, like Starfield hasn't come out yet, but God of War, Ragnarok, and The Last of Us 2 and Horizon, they have all come out, and they all have done amazingly well. Yeah. Like, PlayStation hasn't had anything that scale. Yeah. So what the hell, So they are due a win, and they're buying it, and it's fair enough. And it's
I mean, if you've got the cash to do it, like, you should be allowed to buy it. That's the capitalist sort of society that we live in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's only so far we can push against that before we become hypocrites a little bit. But yeah, it's such a strange thing.
So you think it's gonna pass under when they what do they call it? Contest the ruling.
Yeah, so I don't think it's going to get to that, because I think they're already, like, obviously Xbox put out a statement saying they are going to contest this. It doesn't really matter too much. Like, if the CMA say it goes, then they're pretty much backed up by the government at that point. Like, the UK will sort of, like, that'll be the sort of thing. But
you think it's dead in the water then, or?
No, I do think they are gonna have a round 2 on this, and I do think it's gonna get through eventually.
Because if Europe and America say, yeah, you can do it, that just threatens all of the Microsoft gaming stuff to leave the UK, and the UK definitely couldn't afford that.
Well, it works both ways, right? I mean, first and foremost, to sort of explain this, so the FTC, I think it is, like the the United States one, they've already started trying to sue Microsoft to say, no, you can't do this. And the CMA blockage basically backs that up and says, look, the CMA blocked over in the UK, that's why we're doing this as well.
Right. Right.
But if the CMA approve it, then they've really got no leg to stand on. It's like, okay, now we need to approve it as well. So the CMA sort of have the floor on this one. They sort of have, like the thing, and it sort of says yes or no for the US market as well. That's why it's such huge news. It's not just about the UK. The European market has sort of said that they do want to approve it, and they've already signaled that they are going to approve it. So that being the case, the UK is going to look very, very silly when they're in the middle of a load of trade agreements for the EU, obviously for the EU, because we had Brexit, and we all know how wonderfully that's going.
It's basically giving them a ticket to move everything out of the UK and move it to the EU.
Yes, exactly. And I think that is why they're probably going to be a bit more like open to a few more conversations. So There's been a few lawyers on Twitter and stuff that you can reference that have been saying this exact same thing, which is like, there is a moment here, and the CMA have already signaled that that's the case. And if you read their ruling on the actual Microsoft acquisition sort of blockage, they have a lot of, if Xbox were to have done this, and if they were to have done this, and they would have done this, then we would have said yes. So there's a lot of suggestions in the ruling.
Okay.
That are kind of like, okay, like, so if Microsoft come back, it's like, okay, we'll do X, Y, and Z, but we're not doing A, C, and D or whatever. Will you let it through? Yes. Okay, then it'll go through. One of those concessions, and one of the big ones, what people are talking about, which is not necessarily a bad thing for consumers, is that if the CMA said, if Xbox had mentioned that they weren't going to raise the prices on Game Pass for the next 7 to 10 years or something, what it was, I can't remember the exact sort of time frame they gave, then we would allow it through, because the concern that they've got is like they're going to get a wholesale market for the cloud game and then raise all the prices on it. That's their worry.
Give no one choice.
Which is, like,
that's a bit silly.
Society.
Yeah, but that's a bit silly because it's always going to be balanced by the price of a game. Yeah, always.
Exactly. Yeah, because like I don't think they realize, and I was talking to a guy that I know on Twitter about this. It's like I'm one of these weird people, and I know everyone. I'm definitely in the minority on this, but I am looking forward to the day that every single game is on a subscription service. I really am, because like if I could pay like $50 a month or something just to play any game that I want on any console, I'm all for that, like any day of the week. But I know I'm on the minority of that. But that's the vision of what sort of Xbox is looking at. That's what PlayStation is starting to do with PlayStation now. That's why Nintendo started laying down the groundwork for like their retro sort of catalog on an online system as well, on subscriptions. We're building up to this thing because they realize they're looking at Netflix, they're looking at Spotify. It's like, this actually does make a hell of a lot of sense because they've got the data. The vast majority of people don't replay games. It's probably a good idea, guys, sort of thing. And this, like, blocking this is just like getting in the way of that a little bit. But if their concern, and their only concern really is genuinely that they're worried that Xbox are going to raise the prices on everything, like, are they stepping into the field of, like trying to control private companies at that point? Like, is that getting a bit dodgy? I don't know. Like that's the part where it's kind of like, I don't want them to raise prices. It'd be cool if, this was agreed to. It's good for consumers. But, like, should governments really have that power to be able to set the prices on, on these products? Like, that's a really interesting sort of aspect that no one's really had to think about before until now.
Yeah, that's interesting that they've set that with their agenda being not wanting a monopoly. That's their major role, isn't it? They want to make sure that nothing is a monopoly, and they're ruling on the fact, is it a monopoly, yes or no? So that's really interesting that they've had that as a suggestion to be like, it will go through if you can guarantee no price rises. But that's also interesting because the UK government, at least, are terrible at managing inflation.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so for them to say that,
that's why this whole thing is very silly. Yeah. Because it was any other government, but this
at any other point of time
British
in history.
Government. Yeah. Because any other government.
It's been like the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s that inflation has got away from the UK. Even more so in comparison to America, even like the UK has kept a hold of inflation really, really well over the last sort of 30 years. But now we're in this situation where we're not, in comparison to Europe or America, and then the CMA is saying, yeah, fix this price for this, when you've got huge, massive like energy regulators that are like, we cannot guarantee price fixes. You know, we need government help.
Yep.
This is the sort of the economy we're in at the moment. So that's really odd for them to make that suggestion.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Because if I was in the US making, heading up these deals, I'd be like, no, what if inflation goes through the roof? We're going to be losing money.
Yeah.
If inflation skyrockets again because of another black swan event, or whatever they call it, and we've fixed our prices for 7 to 10 years, they'd have just
Chaos.
made it so cheap. But then again, would they just get rid of half their back catalogue and you can only play a few games?
That's the problem, right? And then you're affecting the market because you're getting a load of developers that aren't getting deals. And they're also like, the economy's gone. This is the thing. Like they only ever look at the UK consumer, like ever. Like they never look at the development side of this. That's what annoys me about all of these things.
Yeah.
It's like they don't look at the fact that they've got Xbox studios, first parties, people that are getting paid salaries to work at these companies in their own countries. And it's like, you really don't realize how much this affects development side, man. Like, just whole studios are dependent upon these deals for Game Pass, Like, there's indie studios in the UK right now that are getting deals chalked up with Xbox right now. That's going to sustain them for the next 5 years straight.
Yeah.
And they're completely ignored. It's just like, well, the consumer that are spending the extra £5 a month, we're really worried about them. It's like, what is happening here? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's very bizarre to me. Like that's the focus of all of this.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
And isn't there, there's tax on games, entertainment, so that's good for the economy as well. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, isn't Xbox taking more money good for the UK market? Yeah, I don't know. It's very strange. But the main thing is that the CMA believe that if Xbox get this deal through and get Call of Duty and get Diablo, then Xbox are going to have a monopoly, specifically in the cloud market. That's their worry, which is kind of like, that's very, very silly to me.
Yeah.
Because you can't. It's to me like what I've always argued, and what I will die on this hill. Exclusives drive competition more than anything, in my opinion. And if you give Xbox more exclusives, like you get a lot of people say, oh, it's going to be a monopoly if Xbox get this company. But it doesn't, because then that will drive PlayStation to want to have games to compete with those things. Like, okay, you take Call of Duty off PlayStation consoles in 10 years' time after this deal is all said and done. By the time that deal is done, PlayStation will have put money into forming a studio, more developers, more IP sort of creation, R&D to make a good first-person shooter to compete with Call of Duty. That's just fact.
Yeah.
So then you've got more games for more gamers to play.
Yeah.
Competition breeds creativity. This is what happens. That's why we have games like Destiny. That's why it's bought out by PlayStation. That's why all these things happen, like in terms of, all these IPs that we've seen over the years. That's why Ghost of Tsushima exists, because of Assassin's Creed. Like, competition breeds creativity, and it's just like there's no like weird way around that. And the fact that the CMA called that out and said it's going to squash creativity and innovation if this deal goes through is extremely short-sighted in the long term. It's for like the first year that might be true until a new game actually gets made, but like we're not there yet. So I just don't agree with this ruling whatsoever. It's very, very silly to me. But
it's really weird.
Such a small percentage of the market as well. Like, just in terms of, look at all the publishers. Like, look at EA, NetEase. You've got Embracer Group, which is huge, like way bigger than what anything that Xbox has got, including the Blizzard and Activision stuff. Like, so many studios. Ubisoft is the biggest publisher in terms of like employee count. Like, they hire people from all over the world. And like all of that, like the slice of pie is like less than 15% of the market is in Xbox's court. Like, PlayStation have a bigger slice than Xbox with
the acquisition going through, right?
Yeah. And it just doesn't make any sense. It like, the more you think about it, the less it makes sense. And the more like people say, oh, it's a monopoly, like they shouldn't own all them IPs. It's like,
that's not
way less than all the other companies.
Because then also that sets a precedent, doesn't it? Because what that means is that no other company, so that means Nintendo or PlayStation, therefore cannot buy anything as big as that slice of the pie.
Right. But PlayStation have been, buying studios out every 5 minutes for the past 3 years, and they announced like a few days ago, there was a headline which I saw, that PlayStation are putting in even more money into their acquisition slice because they want to buy even more studios.
Yeah.
But it's okay for PlayStation to buy, like 6 studios every year.
Yeah.
But God forbid that they're bought in one chunk, because that's what evil Xbox do. And it's like, it's the same thing, guys.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same. Like, we're all drinking from the same well here. It's all about like what games are going to be on these services. Because if you're an Xbox owner, like, this deal not going through, it's a bad day for you. Like, you want to see this deal go through, because like, man, I'd love to see all them games on Game Pass. It'd be great.
And like what you said, I think it will drive competition more. I think this deal will be better for like anti-monopoly. Like, I think it would help Xbox and help PlayStation release better games at a fairer price for consumers, to be like battle for the consoles. Like, in a way, the console battle is good for consumers, like, because they'll make better games for more money, for less money.
It's a bit of a weird sort of opinion, but I genuinely believe that this is actually bad news for Sony in a lot of ways if this deal didn't go through. If this is the end of it, if this does like put the nail in the coffin.
Because they'll sit on the laurels, sort of thing.
No, it's more about the deal itself, the acquisition deal itself, isn't really what is completely shocking to me. It's like Xbox owning Call of Duty isn't inherently like important news to me personally. What's important is the amount of money that they were willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
The fact that now Xbox have signaled that, hey, we've got almost $70 billion just sat here waiting to be spent to make this Game Pass thing come to fruition.
Yeah.
If it goes on the Activision Blizzard deal, then sweet, it goes on that. But if it doesn't,
we're just gonna,
that money isn't going away.
Yeah.
It's going elsewhere.
Other things. Yeah.
They will buy studios. They will buy exclusive games. And that means less game. I mean, if you think it's bad when, PlayStation come along like, yeah, we're going to buy Bloodborne just for the PlayStation platform, right? Imagine that times 10. Right?
Yeah.
It's gonna be absolutely insane, and it's gonna be bad news for Sony gamers more than anything.
Yeah.
I own a PS5, but there's gonna be third-party projects that are gonna be Xbox exclusive if this project doesn't go through. At least it's sort of like predictable, and if this deal did go through, then it would be like, okay, at least we know that Call of Duty is eventually only going to be on Xbox. We know that Diablo is only going to be on Xbox. Like, we get it, right? But with this, it's going to be the next From Software game is only going to be on Xbox. Like, the next, Lara Croft game is only going to be on Xbox. The next, it's going to be like that. Like, they're going to be cherry picking IPs out of everywhere, and people are gonna like start being like, oh, now I have to buy an Xbox, and that sort of weird contention, like with gamers is already there, is just going to get worse and worse.
It's going to get worse. Yeah
And it's much better. It's horrible. Like, I'm not like defending corporate companies or anything, but just like looking at the facts and what is actually happening. Like, Xbox aren't in the wrong here. Like, they should be allowed to do this, and I think it would be better for the industry if they did do it. Honestly, I can't see this helping Sony in the long run, because it's just going to be, we're going to get random things like when Titanfall was exclusively bought from Respawn for Xbox, and the second one only came out on PlayStation. We're going to start seeing stuff like that over and over and over again. With $70 billion, that money isn't going away. And if it's already been allocated to Xbox to be spent, it's going somewhere, if they like it or not.
Yeah, and they probably have contingency plans already.
Yeah.
It's not like they're going to be sat like, oh, we're going to do all this money. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, this is like the Blizzard Activision deal, and then, okay, these are all the studios that we're going to buy if this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a big old list. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be a small list. It's going to be really, really big.
Yeah.
So like the next Persona game is going to be exclusive on Xbox. Imagine that, right? Like, that's the sort of deals that we're talking about here. That's like, because they've just released all the Persona games onto Xbox. Why not?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like the next Assassin's Creed. Why can't that be an Xbox exclusive? These are the sorts of things that they're going to be cutting. And I'd be a lot more worried about that if I was Sony than like losing Call of Duty. Because at least with that, if Call of Duty goes, you can sit there and be like, okay, now we have to make a Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Like S game.
And
that's
a
much easier problem to solve.
Yeah.
And
that'd be good. That's good for consumers and studios alike. If there's two companies that are both making great AAA first-person shooters.
Yeah. It's just not a monopoly. It's so silly.
Yeah.
Very, very silly. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, probably drag this on a little bit.
Yeah.
But have you got anything else to say that you want to sort of spit about it?
No, I think it's going to carry on. I think this isn't going to be the last shocking headline. I think there's going to be twists and turns, and we'll see what happens. I just am worried for the UK gaming industry right now. It's feels like it's teetering on some bad news.
Yeah, I mean, we'll find out before the end of May, I would assume, because that's when the European Union, I think they're giving their opinion in the beginning of June, I think it is, or something. I can't remember it is, and I can guarantee that the CMA want to get something done before that comes out. So
clear up this confusion.
Yes.
So then the next two things that we can talk about are Star Wars Survivor, both getting praised and bombed simultaneously, and PlayStation selling fewer games but making more money. What do you fancy?
Let's do the first one.
Star Wars Survivor. So it's out. I've been playing Jedi Fallen Order.
I'm replaying that right now
in
as well.
preparation. I just completed it again the other day.
Such a great game. It's so good.
It's good the second time round.
Yeah. Like that game has no business being as good as it was. It just doesn't. Like no offense to EA. It's an EA game. It's a Star Wars game.
They have a track record of being very shaky. Like having
I
Battlefront stuff. They've nailed it. Well, apart from the loot box fiasco.
That's what I mean. Like that's what everyone was expecting. But
yeah.
No, it was a fantastic game. So good.
Yeah.
It's great second time around. But now that the sequel's out, obviously it's had some ups and downs. So yeah.
Yeah. So on PC, it's kind of crashing all the time and glitching and terrible frame rate and jittering. So everyone's just rightly bombing it. They're, quite rightly so. Like they're releasing a half-baked PC version of the game. It's not playable. It's terrible. That's no fun for anyone, especially if people that have invested in gaming rigs and hasn't gone the next gen console route. Knowing that they could play something like Star Wars Survivor on PC, and then they get it day one, and their console buddies are having a great time, and the PC people are like, I can't play it. This is why consoles suck, and they'll be blaming the consoles.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a few reasons why this has happened. So
you were saying before about the gyro thing.
Yeah, so like first and foremost, like PC is just like way more difficult to develop for, because you're not like when you've got a console, it's a very specific set of specs that you've got between all of your customers, right? So everyone's either got an Xbox Series S or they got a Series X. That's two configurations you have to worry about. That's it. Like that's the entire market. Same for PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5 is just one model. That's it. So every time like you're testing on a PS5, every single one of your players are going to have that exact same experience, right? So if a game dips at a certain point, it's going to be there, and all this sort of stuff, right? The problem with PC is, outside of the fact that people buy parts that can't get up to scratch with the consoles or whatever, like putting those people aside, because that's an easy target. But the configuration between having RAM, like a motherboard, graphics card, processor, all working together simultaneously, the various like different configurations you get for each one of those things is, you're in the hundreds and thousands at that point, and that's before you start combining all of these things together. You get into hundreds of thousands of different configurations that you have to account for, and then on top of that, you're also dealing with middleware, which I think Jedi Survivor was made on Unreal Engine 4, I want to say. That being the case, that's still got to like account for all of that. And every single day, you've got new graphics drivers coming out, you've got processor drivers coming out, you've got BIOS drivers coming out, all this sort of stuff. It's just constantly getting updated, right? So that's why the console versions are probably a bit more stable than the PC versions. That's just the bread and butter of it.
There's too many iterations to test for.
Yes, I think so. Because a lot of it is performance issues, right? Like that's what's getting complained about. It's not like
the story,
gamey bugs,
right?
It's like that's not what's getting reported on. It's frame rate hits, it's stuff like that.
Because, crashes.
Yeah, because like that's what happens when like you've got different configurations. Because there's some folks that are playing on PC that are having a grand old time. They're just not hitting anything, right? And we've seen that in the reviews. Like there's multiple reviews of people playing, like, I played it on PC, had a great time, 10 out of 10. And that's like, okay, that's cool. And then you go to the next review and it's like, game crashed constantly, 7 out of 10. It's like, all right, something's obviously up, right? These bugs can get squashed, but I don't think people really understand like how bugs are sort of handled in development a lot of the time.
Tell us, Vin. How do they do bugs? So you're 4 weeks out. What was the story you said? 4 weeks out from launch.
Yeah. So like the thing with bugs, when you're making a game, so a game like this would have taken about 5 years altogether, I would say. So up until your last year, so as you're making the game for the first 4 years, that game is running, and I kid you not, at about 12 FPS the whole time, pretty much. Like that's what you're running with. It's between 12 and 20 FPS. That's what the game's going to be like. It's going to be like playing a slideshow while you're trying to test that thing constantly. It's only in the last year, and every single game is like this. Every single game I've ever worked on in the AAA space has gone through this exact same thing. You get into like the last 8 months of development, and that's where the frame rate starts going up and up and up.
Even
and
the
up. That's when you start
fractured butthole
stuff. Yeah, that game ran like crazy. Like you should have seen like that game without anti-aliasing with frame rate unlocked. We made that game in Maya pretty much, like in terms of all the artwork is done in 3D. So it's same thing. And we also made that game in Snowdrop, which was a new engine. So that was the only other game that had been worked on that engine was the Division 1 at that time.
Oh
right?
my god.
So we were working with the Division people constantly, like trying to bug fix that game.
Wow.
And it was like a chuggy slideshow, the whole thing. It was a very funny chuggy slideshow, but it looked all pixelated because there's no anti-aliasing on the artwork and stuff. Really bad frame rates, glitches constantly. And that's what the game was like until the last 8 months.
Wow.
And in the last 8 months, that's when you start adding all the effects, all the anti-aliasing. That's when you start like really polishing to get the game feeling like a game. You really don't get the feel of what the video game is really going to feel like to like a polished degree until like the last 5 months, I would argue.
Which is why a vertical slice is invaluable, considering that 90% of the dev time, it doesn't feel like a game. Or doesn't feel like a good game.
Without a doubt. So like within the last sort of there's a very critical moment where you can delay a game, and it's normally like 2 months out or something that you can be like, okay, the burn chart, and they have burn charts. Like every time you report a bug in a game, like it gets dinged up as a point, and then you can sort of see how many bugs have been reported in a game, and then you burn them down, like you fix them as you go, and you need to fix a certain amount of bugs before like it goes gold, right? So like if you're 6 to 4 weeks out and you're looking at the burn chart and it's looking good, and you're like, okay, cool, like we got this many bugs, like we're fixing this many a day, therefore like we should be at 0 bugs by this day. And that's just having the bugs that are known about, and then you have a guesstimate of how many new bugs might get discovered along the way, so you can sort of guesstimate like what the burn down chart is going to look like. The problem is like if you get past the point of no return, say, okay, we can't delay the game now because we're only 4 weeks out. And the reason why you can't delay a game is because if you do delay a game, then everyone's pre-orders get cancelled on some platforms, which could lose you millions. I mean, I don't mean like a few million. I mean hundreds of millions. Like you just can't. Like, are you going to weigh getting a bunch of gamers angry because like you need a day one patch 3 days after the game's come out, or are you going to, just like delay the game and lose a bunch of money instead? Like what is the dilemma there? How much money versus how much time? I don't know what that calculation would be, but that's what they've got to sort of weigh. And what ends up happening, like, yeah, we're looking good. The burn down chart's looking good. Like, it looks like we're gonna like fix all the bugs. And then suddenly on week 2 of that 4 weeks, you find something, and it's like, oh crap! Like this is a big one. Like we need to spend like 3 days on this to really fix it. All the engineers stop fixing bugs. You need to focus on this. It's a priority 0 issue. We need to fix it right now because this is a showstopper sort of thing. So then you come back to your burn down chart 3-4 days later, and now you suddenly see, oh no, the bugs go past like the release date. So this is what goes into the day one patch now, right? And there's really no way that you can fully sort of estimate that. There's no real way that you can really predict how that's going to land. Like the only way you can really get around it is like if there's a delay 5 months earlier, and you're like, okay, we're definitely not going to make that deadline, in 5 months' time. So instead of giving us like an extra month, give us an extra 2 months. Like that's what sort of secures these things more than anything. And a lot of people look to like perfectly polished games like Breath of the Wild, right? Breath of the Wild got delayed like 6 months before it got released. I think people forget that a lot. It had a big old time, and that's the sort of things. And you can do that as a first party all the time, without a doubt, because you can lean on other incomes like the storefront. You know, you can lean on things like hardware sales. If you're a third party like EA, you don't really have that, you know,
that
wiggle
luxury.
room. Yeah, you really don't, especially when you got, you know, Disney and LucasArts like breathing down your neck. You know what I mean? Like they're kind of like,
game. We said we
need
do
a Star Wars game. We need it now.
Yeah.
You know, like it needs to hit this fiscal year, the beginning of this fiscal. It needs to be out before the end of like tax season. You know, like because if that was the thing, then yeah, that game needs to be out before the tax season. Like there's no way around it, right? Games are hard, man. They're really, really hard to make. So like as long as those considerations are put into view from the gamer, then, you know, I think all the criticism, at the end of the day, it's still a product, right? They have the right to be angry if the game isn't performance or what it was promised. I get that.
Yeah.
100%. But as long as those considerations are put into place, that's the reason why I just really hate this idea of, you know, like people have this idea of developers like putting their feet up, you know, at the end of development, like, we'll put it in the day one patch. That doesn't matter. Yeah. That vision, that annoys the crap out of me, because anyone that's worked in a AAA space and they've seen people, like I was a concept artist in the AAA space, but I saw the engineers work.
Yeah.
And they do not stop in the last like few weeks. You want to like if you want to talk about crunch, like them boys and lots of talented women as well, obviously. But I mean, like they do hard work in them last bits of development, and like for people to just like blasé say, you know, they just don't.
Patch? Yeah, you don't.
Yeah,
care
they don't
enough.
care about the consumer and stuff like that. It's like they care more than anyone else. They just have not got the time, man, because they were given a time frame. They thought they were going to hit it, but something came in that they were just like, we need to fix this.
This is the thing with QA, it's diminishing returns. There is no way that you can spend enough money on QA to understand what bugs are going to come in, because the amount of people you can have in a QA department is insignificant to the amount of people that are going to be playing the game and reporting bugs. It's just night and day. There is no way.
Yeah, I've seen it a million times, man. Like, it's the thing. Like on Assassin's Creed, they had the sheer amount of testing teams that they had on that project, right? I mean, outsourcing companies, internal groups. They've got like a whole division at Ubisoft in Montreal that all they do is test games. That's it. And they're constantly working on the game from day one to release. Like even when it's a janky like grey box mess, there's people testing that stuff. And just hundreds upon hundreds of people playing the game day in, day out. And they release the game, they think it's clean. And day one, there's some kid in Alabama, like day one, like, you know, walks into a field somewhere, the game crashes. And it's like, oh, why didn't they test this thing? You know, and it's just like, what did that kid do? What combination did they go through? Because like gamers, they'll do some really funky stuff, like in terms of like how they play the game, because it isn't just, you know, put the cylinder through the circle hole. It's like they'll try and slam it through the triangle hole for a while, you know, because they'll do all sorts of weird stuff. So trying to like sort of calculate all of those things, it's actually impossible. But when you then suddenly adapt that to 1 million people playing the game all at once, they're going to find some stuff, right? And it's the same thing for the configurations of the systems that people are playing on. I think that's why developers have such a hard time with the PC market, is because it's just constantly in rotation and changing. And it's, I mean, we saw the exact same thing with The Last of Us, right? Like The Last of Us Part 1 came out on PC, got trampled because of performance issues. Same thing.
This is the thing, like in the old days, before like downloadable stuff, obviously they, you know, the games did work, but we're getting better games now. Like games are way more complicated, way more intricate, way more beautiful. Like we're pushing the boundaries way more, and the internet is helping us with that. And at the end of the day, I mean, a few exceptions, you know, like No Man's Sky, look and see how far that's come. Cyberpunk, it's getting closer and closer to a playable game, depending on who you ask. Like, it's gonna get there eventually. All these people losing their minds. I understand, like, your friend wants to play it at the same time and you want to talk about the game. I get that. And if one's on a PC and one's on a console, you can't have that shared water cooler experience, because you have to wait a few months for the PC port to get better. But it's going to get there eventually. Like, hold your horses, calm down. My goodness.
Yeah, I think this is a lot of this conversation. The reason why, like, this I sort of roll my eyes at this sort of stuff is because we need to just accept the fact that we are in a different age now. Like we're dealing with a different set of parameters, which is the internet. We're not in the Sega Mega Drive, Super Nintendo era where games can't get updated, so they have to be polished.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, even though like that still annoys me because Sonic the Hedgehog has absolutely got bugs, Mario Brothers has absolutely got bugs. It's just we don't ever mention them because they're the poster child for this argument.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we just need to accept the fact that we live in an age where we have consoles that are like plugged into the internet. It's like you're going onto Steam and you're downloading a game, downloading one, right, from the cloud. Yeah, it's coming in through your pipe, and you're getting angry about the fact that like more updates are going to come through that same pipe. Yeah, it's very strange to me. I'm not saying we should just like not hold anyone accountable anymore, but the outrage is what confuses me.
Yeah.
The level of like sort of attention that it always gets. It's like it should just be reflected in the reviews.
Yeah.
And every time there's a new update that comes in, like it gets re-reviewed or whatever, right? I'm not saying all outlets should do that or anything, but like Apple have this system in place. Like you go onto the Apple Store, right? If you go and look at an app on the App Store at any one point, at any one time, any of the reviews that from a previous version get cached in a previous version. You can still go and look at them, but they're in a different page.
Yeah.
Like you have to actually go look at previous version reviews.
Yeah.
It'll only ever display the reviews for the version that you're on. I genuinely believe that we need to get to this point in video games.
Well, also, Steam's set up that way. Like, Steam is set up and the algorithm is affected by the amount of updates you do after launch. Like, if you don't have DLC or if you don't have patches or if you don't have updates, you don't do as well in the algorithm. Like, Steam assumes that you're not paying attention or there was some problem with dev time and that the budget's been cut and you can't afford to update your game, and therefore it's not as good. Like, so we're in this situation now where the system tells us that we have to update it as we go along after launch. We can't just get a perfect game on launch.
Yeah, and then people get angry when you do.
Yeah, we can't win.
It's strange. People want a perfect polished game on day one, but I just don't. It's kind of like they want their cake and eating it. You know what I mean? It's that old ticket,
which is understandable to have to voice that. But it's always comes from a place of ignorance, isn't it? And I guess as soon as people have an inkling, they change their tune. I guess quickly we can just mention PlayStation. They've been making money.
Shocking! How dare they? Especially with that monopoly that Xbox have got. They
had a record 6.367 billion in revenue for software sales.
Jesus.
But
they must be really struggling without Call of Duty.
The unit. Do you know the number? Guess the unit sales that they dropped by.
Ooh, what? Like after they went from $60 to $70?
Well, actually, I don't know I don't know the time scale, but all I know is that I don't know if it's over a year.
Well, the percentage should be the same, right?
But there's a number of millions that they've dropped their sales by. I'm guessing.
Oh, so there isn't a percentage.
I think no, it's not a percentage. Guess the number of millions. Sort of
millions of
units that they've dropped by since
across all of their IP.
Across all of their IP since going $70.
I've gone $70. Oh, 50 million.
39 million.
Okay. Yeah, that's still a lot, though, isn't it?
Yeah, down to
that's like
264.2 million.
That's like 2 successful PlayStation IPs coming out. That's like,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, The Last of Us Part 2 and Horizon coming out, that's their numbers combined.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the number it's dropped by.
That's a big old amount.
Huge. But they've had a record 6.367 billion in sales. So it's a record number of sales. I don't know how much they've increased their sales by.
Yeah.
But the fact that it says record, I would assume it's a high number.
Doesn't surprise me, actually. Yeah, I mean,
that's what happens when you increase the sales of the. What we can't see is what that number does against the loss on hardware.
Yeah.
We can't see the number that they've lost by hardware, and we can't see how far up from zero that changes things.
Yeah, it's still more though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's tough because the thing which I always come back around to, like people complain about like the $70 price point, but if you take inflation into account, games really should be about 100 right now. So the fact that the 70 is kind of a godsend. So we should be like kind of thankful.
Yeah.
That it's only gone up by $10.
Yeah, that's true.
Like Nintendo games were like 50 pounds in the 90s. That's like a lot now. It's like £130 or something.
Yeah.
That's how much games would be if we were to take inflation into account.
Yeah, that's true.
For them little old cartridges for, you know,
for like 30 to 40 hours of gameplay.
Yeah, just playing like jousting on James Bond, because that's pretty much all you can do. You can just run at each other.
Slappers only, yeah.
Yeah, it's bizarre that people have the complaint of that, but it doesn't surprise me that we're still at that point, because inflation is kind of rising a lot faster than people are earning. So it doesn't surprise me that they're losing on numbers because of that reason at the same time.
Yeah,
so.
that would be a reason. But the price rise worked. They got a record year and they didn't have to sell as many games.
Yeah, it was worth it, I guess. Because them games are going to come down in sale, so they will get the units eventually.
Eventually, it's just going to take longer. Interesting.
Because I was like that with some games. I just would not buy games for 70 for some IP. Absolutely.
You know, if we weren't in this financial crisis, I would have bought the Jedi game I would have pre-ordered it on good faith.
Right. But
I am now in this situation where I need to wait till the reviews come out, make sure I've got the money in my account, and then do a budget and then buy it. Sort of thing.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I did the same thing with Demon Souls as well when that first came out. It's like, I'm not buying that for 70. It's a remake. It's just not worth it. It dropped down to 50. Bought it. It's like, yeah, absolutely. I'll give them money now. But I didn't want to give them 70. It's nuts. Bananas. Like the only games I bought full price so far, I think, are Horizon Forbidden West, which I kind of regret, but hindsight's a beautiful thing. And
it's beautiful. It's
it's a gorgeous game. Yeah, but yeah,
you could have seen a video of that being beautiful, I suppose.
Yeah, I could have waited for a sale. Is my point. I still would have bought the game. Absolutely, I'm not saying I wouldn't have bought it, but for 70, that was the thing. And what was the other game that I bought? God of War, of course. Right?
God of War.
But, yeah, I got that day one.
I'm still reeling over the price of Breath of the Wild. Like 45
quid. That one is that's a doozy, because that, people, it's just the elder man. Just the Nintendo fan base just baffle me. Like just the amount of hate that I've heard for other companies over the years, especially working at Ubisoft. Like, and then you get the Tears of the Kingdoms coming out. The same map, which is that in and of itself is kind of like
controversial.
Yeah, but no one's talking about it.
It should
because,
be.
It's
that could kill other games. That could literally kill other games.
Yeah, can you imagine if there was a new Assassin's Creed that came out next year with the same map as a previous Assassin's Creed, but just with a few things changed around, new characters, it's all good. Some new puzzles. There would be pitchforks. You know what I mean? There would be riots in the street from gamers. It's like, well, I don't know, what are Ubisoft doing?
What are you paying for? What am I paying for? That's ridiculous.
Right.
What's a rip-off?
But Nintendo do it and charge you $70 for it. It's like, yeah, it's not a problem. It's like, what is happening, guys? Like, just be consistent.
Is it really the same map? I heard that might have been a rumor.
It's the same map.
It is the same map. That's been confirmed.
It's the same map. Yeah, it's absolutely the same map. It's the same map. They've obviously like changed and tweaked areas and stuff. It's got new puzzles and new enemies and all that sort of stuff. Like, but it is the same map. Like the environment artists had a significant amount less work to do. Like that's just fact. And they've turned around and just been like, we're just gonna just ignore that. And everyone's cool with it. And it's like, yeah, okay. Like, where was all this coolness about all the other companies that do it? Like, just blows my mind.
Wow.
Like, any other company did an open world game with the same map, there would be riots in the street. And it's, just, God damn it, Nintendo. I just don't get it. I just can't understand how they get away with this stuff. It just grinds me. And to be clear, I don't want people to be angry at Nintendo. That's not what I'm saying. I just want it to be less angry at the other companies that do this. Yeah. That's the thing I'm trying to go for here.
Yeah.
It's just like, be consistent. You know what I mean? Like, apply the same outrage to what you do for other companies, because it's funny, isn't it? Like the last Zelda game that came out, which was Link to the Past remake. Not Link to the Past. God damn, I won't remember this. Link DX or whatever it is. Link's Awakening, that was it. God, too many similar names. Link's Awakening came out on the Switch, had horrific performance issues. Had to make that game for no other system, no PC, just the Switch, and they still failed. Like, it still has performance issues. To this day, they still haven't updated it. Like, it's still busted. I still can't play it. And that game is $60 still. No one bats an eye. But Star Wars Jedi Survivor comes out and it gets review bombed. It's very strange to me. Like, just the inconsistency of it. It's very odd. But it is what it is. It's the world we live in.
Gamers be crazy.
Gamers be crazy.
That's pretty good.
It's a good way to start. To end it, yeah.
To end. Right. So I guess we should do the things. We're making video games.
We are. Many. Too many, could say.
Yeah. And I guess we, from time to time, post about it. We need to do a round table with Sam because he went to the games convention in Norwich, and we need to talk about that. So we need to book that in.
We do. Yep.
That'll be a midweek thing. But if you want to follow us, where can we find and follow you, Vin?
Yep, at Hillfort Games on pretty much every platform. So on Twitter and TikTok is the main ones, I think, like in terms of follower base. But yeah, at Hillfort Games, I'm making a game called Long Gone. You can also wishlist that on Steam. Again, if you just search Long Gone or Hillfort Games, it should pop up on there. I haven't updated Long Gone stuff in a long time. I'm trying to not show too much because I had a few complaints from people like, oh, you keep showing the same stuff over and over again. It's like, I'm just showing you all in the same area. It's like new features are getting shown. It just happens to be in the same spot. So I'm probably going to wait until like the demo's out from now on, but I'm still working on the demo. I'm going to get that sort of polished up and then get that released so people can actually get it into their hands, because I think people have got a lot of assumptions about that project, which might not hold true by the end of that demo. So I kind of want the real fan base to come through. Like, I want to know my actual like fan base and what they actually want, because there's some people that really get it. Like, they're just like, yeah, man, this is like Monkey Island meets, another world sort of thing, and it's like, that's my fan base right there. Like, they know what it is and they're excited for it. But then there's the other people that's like, oh yeah, I can't wait to play this Survivor game. So it's not yeah, okay, you're gonna have a bad time, but
yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to shoot zombies. It's like, yeah, it's not that game.
It's like, there are no shooting zombies in this game. There are a few attempts, but there's no shooting zombies. So yeah, it's a funny old business, but yeah, but I do need to get a demo out and sort of figure that out. But if you are interested in it, please give me a like and subscribe on all of those things. Give the game a wish list, because indie game developers really like wish lists. Speaking of which, Chris, what about your projects?
So I'm making a game called Focus Find, 2D puzzle platformer mystery narrative game, and you can wishlist that on Steam. I'm working on that full time now, so that's my job. I'm like a game director, if you like, working with Jump Button Studio, and so that is paying the bills. So that would really help me out if you could wishlist that on Steam. And if you search for Focus Find or Acrylic Pixel, you should be able to find my Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, all that sort of good stuff. Interestingly, I've been doing marketing for the game. I've been doing a little ton of kind of short form videos, and YouTube.
How's that going?
YouTube is the best. I can't understand it. I use ChatGPT to help me with my marketing plan, and with like hashtags and the words and things, and they work best on YouTube. Like TikTok, I haven't had that same thing, which is really interesting.
I've not uploaded to YouTube yet, like not one. So I think just my trailer is open. That's it.
You should put some.
I know.
Reels.
I can't. I'm kind of at that point now. It's like, should I just wait until the demo is done?
Yeah,
and then
I get that.
Use that because that's gonna like look the best.
Because you've got time on your hands. I've got a. I'm working.
Yeah,
I'm on a
very different situation.
Yeah, I'm on a deadline. So yeah. That makes sense.
You're doing this to pay the old rent. I am not making Long Gone for anything other than my silly self.
Yeah. So yeah. That's where I am, and it's just really interesting how different two projects can be that are marketed fairly similarly. It's really interesting. So I'm learning a lot, and
awesome.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm enjoying. I like YouTube. Maybe that's it. Maybe YouTube knows that I like it. I get on better with YouTube.
Like, we know you.
Yeah,
we'll boost you.
We'll throw you a bone. Like, I got 1,000 views on one of my videos. Again, we're talking tiny numbers, but my idea is that
it adds up though.
It's
right?
gonna. This is it. Every new view, because they're all new views, they're never returning views.
Sure.
It's another opportunity to get eyes in front of the project that they might want to check out and wish list. And when it becomes like 6 months before release or like 3 months before release, and I'm like maybe spending money on things,
You've already got them.
I've got a base of content for the algorithm to be like, okay, this
Right.
person isn't just coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's the plan. And yep,
Cool.
we're going with it. But
It's exciting, man. Yeah, that's cool.
yeah, it is really exciting, and I can't wait to see what's going to be happening between now and release time, because it's kind of all new for me. So yeah, I just can't wait.
Nah, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out.
Because you've had loads of games under your belt now.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really had like too many of just like of quote unquote my games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's the difference here. Is I'm like, while I've been in the industry for a while, like worked with a lot of big teams and stuff like that, but this is the first one where I'm going to be, you know, alone in it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like every view sort of counts for me personally,
Yeah.
because it's like it's my project sort of thing. So it's very different sort of beast. So like even though all the lessons which I've learned from the AAA scene
Yeah.
don't always apply to indie, and vice versa. Like it can be, sometimes it can like apply straight away and it
Yeah.
runs straight through, but
Yeah.
yeah, other times it doesn't. So it's very bizarre. Like I'm like, you don't see other AAA games sort of leaning on things like TikTok and short form videos, because it's usually the style of those are very, very messy, almost like on purpose. Like, and it's interesting to see some companies starting to get that. Like if you go and check out the TikTok for Bose, you know, like the audio company that makes speakers, they haven't done like the traditional like, oh, we're just going to like snip bits out of our trailers and stuff or our adverts and stuff and just put those in. So, no, they've hired someone to be like a TikToker. And he's just doing like stupid videos like, hey guys, do you know what sounds better with music and stuff? He's like, he's just doing stupid like TikTok stuff with like text over it, and it just looks really janky and not professional. But it's gaining millions and millions of views because they get it, you know, like, and it's interesting to see that side of it. And like I'm sort of finding that with Long Gone as well, is that the marketing is very different. It's a lot less clean when you're by yourself and you're working with short form video. So yeah, very interesting lessons to learn for sure.
Yeah, because the least amount of time I've used to spend like an hour doing the whole process, and I've got it down to like half an hour now.
Yeah.
And it's the same outcome. So like I won't retake so sometimes if I clip an end off of a video, I'll be like, I could try and get it again 3-4 times and I'll stumble on my words, or I could just upload this and it's probably going to
see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't make a difference to the views. So
yeah, I kind of like just to sort of end on it real quick, but like a lot of TikTok and short form videos, I've always described it as polystyrene content, because you consume it once and it's gone, sort of thing. Like you don't rewatch TikToks, you know what I mean?
No.
Like you see them once, you like it, or you move on. I kind of feel like the content sort of reacts to that because of that as well. Like if you just do it quick and whatever, it's done, you know, like then people are going to watch it or they're not going to watch it. Like it doesn't really matter if it's good or not because it's already been watched.
Yeah.
You know? Like at that point, it's just a matter of they're going to like it or not at that point.
Yeah. It's really weird how there's that market for kind of janky media. Like
yeah,
we can't make it
exactly.
quick enough. Like the appetite is insatiable and we want junk food.
Right, and it is junk for the most part. Like it's horrible content if you think about it. Just like the stickers and the text all over it and the quick cuts and all that sort of crap.
Yeah.
Like it looks awful. Like none of it looks good, but it's consumable. That's the difference.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of dealing with that with video games as well, in particular, like the indie market as well.
Yeah.
It's sort of ripe for that stuff. So
yeah, because games itself, this is a long intro, but yeah, like video game as a product, the more polished a video game, the better. But the way you market it doesn't matter. It can be crap.
Yeah, the more janky it is on short form video, the better, almost. Because like if people see anything that's polished on TikTok, they automatically just swipe that as an advert. Like they ignore it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if it's like jank, it's like, hey guys, you know, sort of thing. It's just like quick cuts and text over it. It's like, have you ever been in that time when you know?
Yeah.
And it's just, unless you can't like grab someone, it doesn't really matter. But the second that they sense that it's an advert of some kind, they just like, yeah, screw that, I'm done.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Interesting. Right. Okay. That's a good thought to leave it on. And we'll see you maybe next week, depending on what Vin's doing, chasing visas around, or maybe we'll do a round table. And apologies for the sketchy intervals. But
Yeah, we'll get there again. We are planning to not do a rebrand or something, but we will have a proper sit down, like when I do get to the States, and we're gonna have like a really good think about where the podcast is going and what we're gonna be doing with it. It's not going away or anything, that's for damn sure. It's just about what sort of format we're looking at and are we going to change anything up. So if you've got any suggestions, then please let us know, and we'll take those into consideration when we are sort of tightening the belt.
Yeah, because our careers have changed, so there's
a lot. Yeah.
So
without doubt,
show could reflect that change.
I believe so too.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Until next time, guys.
Take it easy.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.